During the trial, the jury would be able to hear outside noise and influences. It is a deliberate, ongoing, strategic investment to reach the potential jury pool.
I like talking. I like to reveal the truth.
Courthouse chaos, an outspoken defendant, and alleged witness intimidation. We're just days away from what seems like the impossible task of picking a fair and impartial jury for the retrial of Karen Reed. So we're asking, should the jury be sequestered? And another big retrial begins today, the battered and burned case against Linda Sturmer. We're taking you inside of that Michigan courtroom for opening statements this morning. Plus, a brand new law inspired by abusive momfluencer Ruby Franke. We'll tell you what Utah is doing to protect other kids from the dangers of family bloggers. Also this hour, a case of BDSM, he said, she said. A Milwaukee real estate agent is accused of sex trafficking 2 women who allegedly signed contracts to live under his roof and under his control. An expert is helping us define the line between fetish and felony. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you, or should I say happy Friday Eve. Welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. We got a tremendous show planned for you, so let's get started. Grab that cup of coffee or tea or whatever you like in the morning. It's time for my opening statement. They celebrated like they won the Super Bowl during a verdict on a homicide case. Defendant Nichole Rice, her lawyers, her loved ones, all cheering loudly and making a spectacle when they got the news that she was acquitted. I've never seen anything like this in my career. It was obnoxious, it was classless, and it was disrespectful to the court and to the victim's family. Anita Knutson was murdered. Her family is still grieving and missing her every single day, and they had to watch that celebration at the defense table at the conclusion of the trial for the person that police believe murdered their Anita. Nichole Rice should also bear in mind that a not guilty verdict does not equate to an innocence finding. A not guilty verdict legally means that the jury or the judge found that the prosecution failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. An innocence declaration is something else entirely. So while a not guilty verdict lets a defendant walk free, it's not the same thing legally as a declaration of innocence. I hope and I pray that Anita Knutson's family finds comfort in knowing that the police and the prosecutors tried to get them justice. The trial, it made all of us courties learn about beautiful Anita, and we promise to never forget her. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
I can't even put into words what it must be like to be wrongfully convicted, spend almost 9 years in prison, and then have this weight of a murder charge hanging over your head for almost 7 years.
That was Linda Sturmer's defense attorney. Opening statements in her case are going to start up at 9 a.m. Eastern time. This is a retrial. This is the trial that we're calling the battered and burned murder trial. We're going to go in there live together at 9 a.m. In Massachusetts, we've also got opening statements beginning in the surgeon strangles wife trial for Dr. Ingolf Turk. This is a renowned surgeon. He is on trial accused in the death of his wife. That one also starts at 9 a.m. Now, let's turn to our top story. We've got a bizarre twist to tell you about in the case against defendant Karen Reed. An alternate juror from Reed's first trial is now joining her defense team in her second trial. According to new court documents, civil attorney Victoria George has been added to the defense team. She served as an alternate juror in the first trial and was not part of deliberations. Now, this comes as Judge Beverly Cannoni issued a ruling on the buffer zone, extending it outside of the Massachusetts courthouse.
It's been reported that during the trial, the jury would be able to hear outside noise and influences, not just honking of horns, but other types of noise that could be influential, intimidating, concerning. And so we've proposed recommendations to the court to move certain parts of the buffer zone, especially on the left side of the courthouse.
Does the defense object to the buffer zone?
We take our position.
So last year there was a 200-foot buffer zone that was put in place, but now it's going to be extended for the retrial. And inside of the courtroom, of course, there are no signs, clothing that favors one side or another. That's typical for any courtroom. We have to maintain decorum. Jury selection set to kick off next week. This retrial is dominating the headlines, Massachusetts and elsewhere. And we're asking, should this jury that is selected also be sequestered? They weren't sequestered in the first trial. We know that jury was hung. But what about in this trial? Let's bring in our guests. I'm so happy to have with us this morning retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer and high-profile criminal defense attorney Michael J. Brown. Good morning to you both. Let's start with the sequestration. Jen, your thoughts. Should this happen this time around?
Well, in this particular trial, yes. I mean, normally I don't support sequestration because of the burden it puts on those jurors to be away from their families. Sometimes it's a financial impact. But in the OJ trial, in the Derek Chauvin trial, and trials that are this much attention seekers, it's definitely called for here. They don't need to see what's happening on social media, be in contact with their families, see the ruckus that goes on in this town around this courthouse. They need to be sequestered.
I'm with you, Jen. Michael, what do you think?
Julie, good morning. Sequestration in our state in New York is really out. We haven't had it in so many years, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. And the ultimate issue is whether or not that jury can listen to the evidence, render a fair and impartial verdict, free of any of this outside pressure. And in this particular case, it's really an extreme situation. It may be the only way that that jury can go untainted, listen to the evidence, and render a verdict without any of those external pressures. So yes, it's costly. Yes, it's an inconvenience. But if these jurors are willing to sit and take time out of their weeks and months, whatever it takes, it may be the appropriate measures.
Great points. I really hope that the judge will do that. We know that she changed position with respect to the gag order, which, you know, I was under the opinion once this case started heating up and things were getting really ugly, that should have been imposed a long time ago before trial number 1 happened. But now here we are. Jen, how do you think that's going to make a difference in trial number 2?
I think it's going to be helpful. Look, I think that gag order, as you just mentioned, should have been in place a long time ago. This case is just wrought with so much emotion and passion and really misinformation that has been specifically pointed out. Attorneys not telling the truth, not only outside of the courtroom, but inside of the courtroom. For that reason, that muzzle should be on.
Definitely. It's on the attorneys. I'll tell you the person it's not on. Take a look at the next clip.
I've never dated someone or been intimate with someone that they're just completely extricated. You can't get a hold of them anymore. It was just a weird feeling, but now I just want to save myself, and I just want to be who I was before this, and I care less about fighting for John.
A little clip from the Investigation Discovery docuseries that just aired. It had an enormous viewing audience called A Body in the Snow. And the Commonwealth got the ruling, Michael, that they're able to use all of these statements. Your thoughts on how that's going to play out?
Yeah, you bet you can use these statements, Julie. Anything that the defendant says, and obviously it's subject to a pretrial hearing, making sure it's voluntary and that she waived her rights, it wasn't coerced or forced. But when you have these defendants, and I don't know why they do it, when they go on shows and documentaries and give interviews, any potential slip-up, inconsistency, statement that is going to incriminate them is certainly game for the prosecution, and they can introduce it on their case in chief, and they can also cross-examine the defendant with it. So big deal. Don't know why she would do it, but it's there.
Right, Michael. Let's talk about the other big thing that it's kind of a head scratcher when you say don't know why she would do it. So she's now adding one of the alternate jurors in her first criminal trial to become a member of her legal team. It's no secret that juror has been very supportive of her. The juror gave a statement to Boston station WBZ, essentially talking about her being a fair-minded person, and she left with lots of questions about the integrity of our system. She really wanted to be a deliberating juror. That was made very clear. My understanding, it was also reported she was seen wearing pink the next day, and we know that was a color that Karen Reed apparently requested that her supporters wear to show support, to contrast with all the people in blue supporting the victim, Officer John O'Keefe. This lawyer is, you can obviously add anybody who you want to your team. She's not a criminal lawyer. She's never done criminal defense work, never been a prosecutor. Jen Coffindeffer, your reaction to this move, please.
You know, nothing surprises me anymore. It makes sense to me from the standpoint of she's been in that deliberation room. She knows what worked, what didn't work, what those jurors struggled with, and what they believed. So I think she's going to be able to be quite helpful to the defense in terms of providing information to them that's sort of inside information. But what really strikes me, Julie, is the fact that I think she was a tainted juror. She wore that pink. I'll never forget that day that I saw her wear that pink. And I think that that shows that indeed some of these jurors could be tainted. She's an example.
Right, Jen, right. She could have been that stealth juror who wanted to get on that jury because of what she knew about the case. I guess we'll never know. Michael J. Brown, let me ask you this. You know, it's not like her defense team is suddenly able to add F. Lee Bailey or Johnny Cochran and, you know, somehow try to create a dream team. It's not that. She is not that lawyer. She's never done criminal law. Is it smart to make her a member of the legal team, or might they just consult with her and just pick her brain about what she liked and why she feels so strongly about Karen Reed's innocence?
Yeah, great question, Julie, and I agree. She's not going to help in terms of the legal part of it, but she has this unique perspective of being the audience that you're trying to play to and trying to convince. Now, putting her in the back in the courtroom versus sitting next to you at the table, there will be a difference because, as you know, having tried cases yourself, things move very quickly. So the fact that she's right there next to the attorneys, she can give them that 2 cents right there and then, as opposed to at a break when she would be in the courtroom. So it is a difference to have her sitting at the actual table and maybe making a comment, giving a suggestion as the trial goes forward. So I think it's a unique move, and it's a good move. It can't hurt them.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah. I mean, she obviously has great information to offer them and great insight. I guess the only thing I was kind of wondering about, and thank you for explaining that, you know, you may not want to crowd that defense table with people who aren't in a position to make those legal strategy calls and respond to the objections. And so I guess we'll see if she's sitting there. They have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 lawyers as of now. Now she's number 5. So getting a little crowded there. One other thing we're waiting for a ruling on is, I mean, I suppose we need to get the motion from Hank Brennan first. He said he would be filing a motion in limine to introduce the text messages between defendant Karen Reed and defendant Aiden Carney, aka Turtle Boy, and he wants to use them, he argues, to show Karen Reed's consciousness of guilt. And he got a win on getting the messages, and then he said this motion in limine would be forthcoming to try to get that jury instruction. Michael, do you think he will be successful in being able to introduce those messages to show what he intends to show?
Yeah, I don't think they're not privileged. I mean, the judge eliminated the possibility of the text between the attorney and the client, and that's a great ruling. This is the defendant reaching out to another person. That's not privilege. And if the prosecution has damning or incriminating text messages between the two individuals, clearly, again, that's game. That's where she's putting herself out there voluntarily and making statements that potentially could be incriminating. They are certainly something that is subject to introduction by the prosecutor.
Michael, thank you for that. Jen, thank you as well for your insight. We got to leave it there for now. You both are coming with us. We're so grateful for that. Up next here on Opening Statements, here's what we've got.
Mr. Chronister held BDSM sex parties at his residence, and she said participation was mandatory unless you were at work. and you weren't allowed to turn down any kind of sexual intercourse.
Got a real estate agent accused of running a sex slave operation inside of his home. We have an anti-trafficking expert weighing in this morning. Plus, Kim Kardashian back in the courtroom. The celebrity is going to be taking the stand in Paris as part of her robbery case. Remember that? Well, the alleged ring is being brought to trial now, and she's going to be a state witness. We'll be right back.
Is Karen Reed a killer girlfriend?
She's guilty.
Or the scapegoat in an elaborate cover-up?
Karen Reed was framed!
Karen Reed is accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend.
And it's stated repeatedly, I hit him, I hit him.
She may end up taking the stand.
Her first trial ended with a hung jury.
They haven't proven anything.
Will a jury finally agree on a verdict?
We know who did it.
The Karen Reed murder retrial. Live coverage next week following jury selection on Court TV.
We've been looking for 30 straight minutes for her, and I was starting to get worried. And I was like, okay, we're going to start calling around in the neighborhood, and if I can't find Eve in the next 20 minutes, I'm calling the police. And then I found this. You only got a little gist of it on camera. All of the discipline takes place off camera.
Momfluencer Ruby Franke collected over 2 million followers on her social media before she was convicted of felony child abuse. Her fall from grace is now leading to a change in Utah law. On Tuesday, Utah added some new protections for the children of online creators like Ruby Franke. So under the encouragement of Franke's now ex-husband, Kevin, that law is going to allow the scrubbing of digital content featuring minors on all platforms. Under the new law, online creators featuring children will be required to also set aside 15% of their earnings into a trust fund for the kids. And the parents of child actors will also be required to place a portion of their earnings in a trust for them. Now, Franke and her good buddy therapist Jody Hildebrandt were both sentenced to spend 30 years behind bars. And so this morning we're asking, will this new law be effective? Let's bring in our power panel. So happy to have with me this morning entertainment commentator and actress and photographer Holland Reed, still with us. Also FBI retired special agent Jennifer Coffindaffer and attorney Michael J. Brown. Okay, Holland, let me go to you on this one. You've followed Ruby Franke all through, the height of fame to her demise, and now here we go, the law inspired by her bad acts. What do you think? Do you think this is going to be a good thing?
I think it's a great thing. I think we dealt with this. Think back to Britney Spears. Think back to all these conservatorships. There's one thing to be shock value entertainment. There's another thing to abuse, exploit, and then call it parenting and use it for profit. I think we know she's going to jail for a while, but in order for this to continue, we have to have cases like this in place so that children are protected when they're not being abused and exploited. These kids did not have a choice. They were in her care and they were used for her profit and gain. And I think this is a really good eye-opening experience for people that do put their kids out there on social media and then profit from it.
Right, Holland. I couldn't agree more. Let's go back to when she was sentenced and what she said to her babies.
To my babies. My 6 little chicks. You were a part of me. I was the mama duck who was consistently leading you to safety. I can see now, over the past 4 years, I was in a deep undercurrent that led us to danger.
Oh, she was a mama duck that made a lot of money, too, as we know. Jen Coffindaffer, let me go to you next, please. Your thoughts on the new law.
Well, I'm thrilled for the new law, but the biggest part of the law that I like is this part that can scrub that social media from these embarrassing and humiliating and degrading moments. That's the piece that I like the most. Yes, it's fine to set some money aside for the kids. They certainly deserve it. But that's the piece that these kids have to live with for life. And by the way, Ruby Franke deserved an Oscar for that. She bound her kids. She put duct tape around them. She made them stand in the sun. And I didn't buy one word of that on a side note.
Jen, I love the point you made. Thank you for that. Michael J. Brown, boy, oh boy, it's a tricky world out there, isn't it? Where, you know, a parent can share things like she was an oversharer, right? You know, not illegal. But you know just what a bad world it can be and the exposure that can be done to kids, the risks associated with that, people who may want to do them harm. Love your thoughts on this issue, please.
Julie, great law. It really protects these kids who have no option in the decision-making process. They're children. They're being, I want to say, exploited in some cases. In other cases, they're not. But at the end of the day, when they mature, they can make that decision if they want to remove this from the social media platform. And the other part of this is, hey, mom or dad are making all this money off of them. Wouldn't it be nice if they profit to some extent? So the fact that they're guaranteed a percentage also is somewhat refreshing. So I think it's a great law. There's no downside, all upside for these young children who have really no choice in this process.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, they didn't have a choice, and now this poor kids, we just hope they're getting the help they need, therapy, healing, all of that. You know, on behalf of all of us here, we send them our good wishes. Let's turn to our next case, because, you know, we have another influencer news kind of case. Things aren't stopping this morning with Ruby Franke as we turn to fashion mogul Kim Kardashian. Apparently, she is set to make an appearance in Paris in the coming months about her 2016 jewelry heist case. We all remember that, right? She was held at gunpoint, and according to multiple reports, this case is going to trial now, and Kardashian is going to testify against these suspects who police say were connected to her robbery during Paris Fashion Week years ago. She was held at gunpoint by 5 masked men. They stole millions of dollars in jewelry from her, including a $4 million ring that she was gifted by her then husband, Kanye West. Now, we know Kardashian passed California's baby bar exam. She has yet to pass the actual bar exam to become a licensed attorney, but she's been very vocal about criminal justice reform, as we know. So we're asking, how will Kim K's legal education affect how she does as a witness in the robbery trial? I love this question. How about this? Michael J. Brown, let me start with you, our attorney on the panel. What do you think? You like Kim K as your witness if you're the prosecutor?
I love your question as well, Julie. So here's what, you know, she's somebody who is in the limelight. She's in the spotlight. So she's used to having that audience and the spotlight on her. So on direct, she'll be tremendous. And a lot of the people will be in awe of the celebrity status in terms of the jurors. But here's the other part of it is she's always in control whenever she does anything. She is the person that the focus is on. She's in control of the situation. Well, if you have a good defense attorney cross-examining her and controlling her on the stand, the question is she going to get flustered? Is she going to lose it? Or will she maintain her composure? Because, again, she's not going to be in control in a situation where you have a good defense attorney. So it's going to be an exciting cross-examination, I expect.
Yeah, it sure is. Holland Reed, let me go to you next. We know Kim K loves the spotlight. Is she going to love that kind of spotlight? What do you think, please?
Oh, absolutely. This is Kim's wheelhouse, and I absolutely will tell you, do not underestimate Kim K. She knows how to hold it down in all arenas. She was famously on David Letterman, and while she was convincing us and explaining to us what happened during the actual robbery, she was still able to make jokes and not necessarily make light of it, but be able to convey a true story that was extremely believable and extremely accurate. So I think her on the witness stand is going to be phenomenal because it is her wheelhouse. She knows how to draw that fine line between reality and also entertainment. And I think that's what we're going to look forward to, unfortunately, in a good way on the stand. I hope that it does bring her justice.
Holland, I love what you said there. You know, the Kardashians, you know, everybody has opinions about them. I tell you what, they're brilliant business women. Can't take that away from them for sure. Holland, do you think that Momager Chris will go and accompany her? Who do you think from the Kardashian clan might show up with her for some support? Because as we know, that can be really intimidating and scary to be on the witness stand, and especially in front of these people who allegedly robbed her.
I think everyone's going to be there. I think the entire family. So one of the biggest things that they're known for is they stick together no matter what, whether they're agreeing with each other, arguing, bickering, fighting, divorces, children, this, that. They stick together as a unit, as a business, more importantly. This is their brand. This is their legacy. They're not going anywhere. And I guarantee you will see every single member of that family, probably even children included, standing by Kim's side in Paris.
I think that's a great prediction, Holland. Thank you for that. Jen Coffindeffer, of course, want your thoughts on this, the crime that's being alleged, and Kim K, how she fits in the trial.
You know, I think she's going to be tremendous. I completely agree with Holland. I think she's also going to be able to bring out that emotion that she felt, the fear that she felt at the time. I mean, she was truly, truly victimized. And I think when you combine that with her now legal background and what she's been studying, she's going to understand the points that she needs to get across, combined with the facts that happen. So I think she's going to be tremendous, and her background will only help her.
Yeah, great points, Jen. Thank you for that. Yeah, we sometimes don't think of her as, she's a crime survivor. She survived, this attack, and that had to be incredibly frightening for her. I remember watching the show at the time when she was talking about it, and just how scary. And so we'll see if it becomes another trauma for her reliving that. So we'll follow it and then report back once the time comes. Big thanks to Jennifer Coffindeffer and Holland Reed for coming on this morning. We love having you both. We'll see you soon. Michael J. Brown is coming with us, and you better do the same at home. Go get another coffee or something. We're going to be back here in just 4 minutes, and here's what's next.
When she informed she wanted to leave, she attempted to move past him to get her things to leave, at which time she reported that he grabbed her. She attempted to run up the staircase of the house. He tackled her, held her down against her will, and dragged her up through her hands up the staircase to a second floor landing.
We are digging deep into the sex slave assault trial for defendant Austin Chronister. So was it just BDSM and consensual, or did it escalate into illegal sex trafficking? We'll talk about it with an expert. And in just 30 minutes, we're set to watch the opening statements together in the battered and burned murder trial for Linda Sturmer. Her legal team saying that she didn't start the fire. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This morning, we're shining a spotlight on a case out of Wisconsin, a case involving a real estate agent who police say was holding women captive in his home as sex slaves. His name is Austin Chronister. He's accused of human trafficking and false imprisonment and sex assault. The criminal complaint filed against him says that Chronister made these women sign a contract in order to live with him, that initially it was consensual BDSM that they were agreeing to in his home in Milwaukee. And there were some rules in the contract, including sex on demand, wearing a collar at all times to remind the women that they were being evaluated for service. Well, at a probable cause hearing, an investigator talked about what some of these alleged victims say they went through when they claim things escalated in the wrong direction.
What would happen if she said no to the defendant with regards to these chores or instances of intercourse?
He would start physically beating her or doing some sort of reprimanding. If her chores weren't done, she was prohibited from attending family events, so she missed significant family events. And she was threatened at one time with being injected with some type of ingredient that would render her in a coma state. And as previously stated, he also enforced acts of sexual intercourse on her.
Chronister's back in court on April 10th. He'll be formally arraigned on that date, so we'll get an idea of how he wants to proceed with this case, if we're going to see him fighting it, and maybe we'll see a trial. Who knows? But in the meantime, so many important questions coming up. Of course, nobody wants human trafficking happening in America. No person deserves to be sexually abused. There are laws on the books against these things. But this case is complicated. As we know, initially, these were consensual BDSM relationships. So How did things go from fetish to felony, allegedly, in this house? So pleased we have on the show this morning an anti-trafficking expert and survivor, Rachel Fisher. Rachel, good morning. Wonderful to have you here. So first impressions of this case. I realize we're not at the stage of trial where we're taking people's testimony and we can hear directly from these women, but based on your research, your expertise, what you know, what do you think of this? Is this a case of just BDSM and people getting what they bargained for, or did this escalate across legal lines?
There are definitely elements of both. The BDSM aspect of it complicates it, and it's what a lot of defense attorneys will use as a defense in even, relationship cases where there's just two people involved. When you have a whole group, it gets more complicated, but the elements of BDSM, it comes down to power and control, and it comes down to, did they have a choice and could they stop it? The trafficking elements are there. The acts means the purpose of, they're harboring somebody, even if they're there willingly. It's the common elements that we see in trafficking cases across the United States. The domestic servitude aspect of it, being held against your will. Even if you sign a contract, the moment you say, I'm done, or no, it's not consensual anymore.
Right. You're exactly right, Rachel. I have a clip from the probable cause hearing where one of the detectives who worked the case is talking about how there were these BDSM parties and everything was fun, but then, wait a second, if these women didn't do what the defendant wanted them to do, they got punished. Let's take a look.
Did JKP ever state whether or not there were instances where she was being forced to do acts within the home for this Mr. Chronister?
I believe she had indicated that she was expected to participate in BDSM sex parties in a sex dungeon that was in the basement of the house.
Did JKP state whether or not she'd be punished if she did not do these acts?
Yes.
What did she state?
Punishments could vary from taking privileges away at the house, food items, attention from Mr. Chronister.
Rachel, to underscore your point about how you're seeing elements of both, elements of consent and then elements of things that were not consensual, that were inflicted and abusive, is it harder for victims of this kind of thing to be sympathetic and be believed by a jury or a judge because of the BDSM component?
There's a lot of victim blaming in human trafficking, even as it is, and then you add in those elements. The force, fraud, and coercion is what comes down to here, is being forced to do something to the point where there's consequences, and that's present in this case, is that there's consequences, and then the coercion, making something fair seeming that isn't. So, and then the fraud, and then keeping documents, those elements that are here, they're present in what it sounds like so far. And the victims, they're very hesitant to talk because it's tough to talk about things that happen to you, especially sexual trauma. It's tough to talk about those, especially in a courtroom in front of a jury. And then you get the elements of stigma, where people still have a stigma against BDSM. They look at trafficking as prostitution. There's a confusion still even there with understanding it. But when you break down the case and you listen, each individual story is different, and each person got there by a different means. And whatever their vulnerability was, that's what's targeted in these cases, is taking vulnerability and exploiting that, and to see how far they can push it. And the acts, the sex acts, the servitude, if they had to cook, clean, do things in the house, well, it's slavery. It's modern day slavery. And the collars, the branding, we see branding very often with human trafficking, and that sounds like it's present here as well.
It's all horrific and repulsive, most certainly. And I think another component to this that people may not realize, I know you realize this, Rachel, because of your expertise, people aren't always how they present themselves. And so here we've got Austin Chronister, and I know that legally he's cloaked in the presumption of innocence. This guy's holding down a job as a real estate agent. I haven't personally met him, but he may be very pleasant. He may have a lot of personality. What's been your experience when you encounter people who are pimps? How do they often behave when they're encountered by people that they're not working?
They are master manipulators, psychologists without a degree. I always say that I've never met a pimp I didn't like. And with trafficking, you've got the pimp mindset. And there's even books on how to pimp. And it's this cultural acceptance right now that people think it's normal. And so when it's all over social media and these kids and these young girls get started into thinking, oh, I'm going to have a relationship with somebody who's showering me with gifts and grooming me. And then you start off as, oh, this is a normal relationship. It's fun. I'm just helping him out. Oh, now there's just friends involved. And it kind of grows in that capacity. But it's this cycle of violence. It's this power and control dynamic. And so in this case, you see all of these elements of that power and control, and you see, the vulnerabilities and the why doesn't she just leave? That's the biggest question people ask is, why doesn't she just leave? There's trauma bonding. You go through all this trauma with somebody and you can't just walk away. And there's many reasons: drugs, getting them dependent on drugs, the embarrassment, the not being able to leave because you don't have your passport, your documents. Where are you going to go and who's going to believe you? That's what the victims think. So it's tough to even come out and talk about it in these cases, but it's really sad because it's happening and it's prevalent. And in America, there's a lot of domestic trafficking that's taking place, and the common person doesn't really understand it. But these pimps, they're very likable. They'll talk to you, they'll make you believe their lie, and you'll think you're actually in this Romeo-Juliet relationship until you're not anymore.
So well said. Brilliant insight you're sharing with us, Rachel. I would love to have you back, not only on this case, but also on Diddy's case. We know that one's coming up in May. Let's have that conversation another day, please. Rachel Fisher, thank you so much for waking up early with us. We'll talk again soon, I hope. Take care. Coming up next here on Opening Statements, we've got opening day set to happen in minutes in the battered and burned murder trial for Linda Sturmer. That's set to happen at 9 a.m. and her defense team is saying that she didn't start the fire.
You feel that? The NWSL is on ION.
It's game time.
Showing off a little skill now. The new Saturday Night Out is on ION all season long. Find ION wherever you watch.
ION, it's on.
The jury was sequestered for 9 months.
These people were too beat down to even try to fight for their own conviction.
Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? Season finale Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
Now, for what's tipping the scales of justice in just a few minutes, we're set to watch opening statements together in the battered and burned murder retrial for Linda Sturmer. This defendant is accused in the 2007 murder of her husband, Todd. She was convicted in her first trial, but eventually released from prison after a series of appeals. Now, let's take a look back at the case. Here's Court TV anchor Ted Rollins.
Our mother murdered our father. She drugged him, and she set the house on fire, doused him in gasoline. Then after the fact, when he managed to get out of the house, she ran him over with her van.
That's Todd Sturmer's sons talking to 48 Hours about the January 2007 murder of their father, allegedly at the hands of their mother, Linda. Documents obtained by Court TV lay out the prosecution theory of what happened. Linda was having an affair and Todd wanted a divorce. She spent the morning of the murder buying gas in cans and then sent the kids to the mall. She drugged Todd, according to the state, hit him on the head with a blunt object, doused him with gasoline, and lit him on fire. When he survived that and escaped the home, Linda was there and ran him over with his van. Linda's carpool buddy, Kate Fox, testified that Linda had told her that she spent years thinking about ways to get rid of Todd.
Did you have anything to do with his death? Nothing whatsoever.
Linda's story was that she was in the basement doing laundry when she heard Todd scream from the living room. She said the smoke was too thick to reach Todd. So she ran outside, got in his van to go seek help. That is when she says Todd came running out.
Did you know you had run over your husband? No.
Linda says Todd wouldn't get in the van, and she lost sight of him in the chaos. But prosecutors say she wanted to make sure he was dead. And in 2010, a jury agreed. Linda was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. Then, in 2018, Linda's conviction was overturned on the grounds that she didn't get a fair trial. She was released on $10,000 bond.
This is Linda Sturmer.
Now she has a new attorney who is questioning whether the fire was even deliberately set and whether Todd's death ever should have been ruled a homicide.
All right, that was Ted Rowland's reporting. Wow, what a case this is. Let me bring in our legal analyst guest this morning. So pleased to have on the show high-profile criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Michael J. Brown. Oh boy, Michael, these facts, it's chilling hearing what's alleged here. What are your thoughts on this defense attorney now, new defense attorney, new trial? This woman gets a mulligan. Taking the approach that the fire was not intentionally set by her. Do you think that could change things?
It could. Julie, if you go back to the actual appeal and you look at the decision, there's two basic things that the court looked at it and had a problem with. One is the prosecutorial misconduct, where in the closing statement, the prosecutor continued to call her manipulative liar, 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 keeping in mind she never even testified. And that's a big no-no, as you know. The other part of it is the defense attorney, it was deemed incompetent counsel and effective assistance of counsel because he didn't bring an expert witness in, and apparently there was some evidence to suggest that it was not intentionally set and or she didn't set it. So this attorney is following through on that. The techniques apparently have advanced and progressed since that time. So yeah, if it's in fact something that is justified and that there is evidence to that effect, I think it's a great move.
Michael, thank you for that. We caught up with him briefly late in the day yesterday. Let's take a look at some of what he said.
If you look at the situation she was in, the absolute terror of that situation is fight or flight. And so if you don't remember specific details and they're inconsistent, at the end of the day, the fire science tells us there was no arson. And if there's no arson, there's no crime.
Ooh, okay. Michael, do we see maybe a defense theme there in his last line of the interview?
Yeah, if there's no arson, there's no crime. And then he talks about the fact that she panicked and fled the scene and hit her husband. I'm looking forward to seeing what the evidence is. Sometimes you have battles of the experts. Sometimes you only have one expert. And again, we have seen advances in the arson field and investigations since this matter went to trial. So that could be very important, whether for the prosecution or the defense. So I think that's what he's alluding to, and I think that's where they're going to go on this trial.
Yeah, great points. Michael, so curious to see how the boys are doing. Of course, our hearts go out to them. You have to wonder, after all these years, do they feel any differently? We saw how they appeared in that interview with 48 Hours, but who knows now? Thoughts on how they, as potential witnesses, might be able to influence this case?
Well, I think now, I don't know the first trial, and I suspect in the first trial there was some uncertainty that they had. But it's clear from their interviews now that the two sons are convinced that the mother actually killed the father. So certainly they're going to be favorable to the prosecution. They're going to, I hate using the word skew, but they're going to slant their testimony in that direction. So I think they will certainly be a weapon for the prosecution to the extent that they can, keeping in mind she apparently wanted to leave the husband and move on, and that's going to be something that they can describe to the jury.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to see. They're getting ready to do the opens in a couple of minutes. And Michael J. Brown, thank you so much for all the great analysis. You're going to be standing by. We appreciate you for that. When we come back, it is time for Court TV Live. We're going to Michigan together for Linda Sturmer's Retrial.